You likely have a precise plan for how your current crisis should resolve. You believe that arranging the variables correctly will likely bring success. But this hyper-specific planning is actually a cognitive trap that computer scientists call overfitting. Welcome to the next episode of the Unscripted Commentary Series. If you haven't seen the Devar Torah for Parshas Miketz and Chanukah, go check it out on the info card above or in the link in the description. 2024 MIT study demonstrates how devastating this can be. An artificial intelligence trained to navigate New York City achieved 99% accuracy, yet closing just 1% of the streets caused performance to plummet to 67%. The model had overfit the specific routes, never developing a true understanding of the underlying traffic network. To build unshakable conviction by I actually did in my PhD work in astrophysics, I dealt a lot with modeling. I dealt with Bayesian analysis, things called Markov chain Monte Carlos. And when I started looking more into AI, which I use a lot, of course, in my videos and in my whole production from start to finish, I was getting frustrated, as many people do when they use AI. When it would go off in tangents, hallucinate, why can't it do basic things, but other things it's good at? And then when I looked more into it and I learned that it uses this Markov chain Monte Carlo, which is a technique using Bayesian statistical analysis, it all started to make sense. So for my research, I was dealing with 13-dimensional space. And what that means is that I had 13 different variables I had to integrate over, or what we called marginalize over, in order to find out the likelihood of how well a certain model, given all the parameters, would fit the data. I specifically was looking at what's called the velocity dispersion, but essentially if you have a dark matter halo and its density profile, how well can it reproduce the velocity data or dispersion from the observers? So the problem is that you can't just go and integrate over it. It's too many variables. The space you need to look at is too large. But as it turns out, a lot of those combinations for parameters lead you to very bad fits for the data. So instead of equally distributing your search over all parameter space, you start guessing. And every time you guess, the first guesses are pretty bad. And then you work your way towards better guesses. And you only accept the samples that you find that give you good probabilities. But what happens is if you only accept the ones that give you better fits, you can get stuck in what's called the local minimum. And you won't be able to explore other parts of parameter space. So you still have to allow for every now and then for new combinations. You still have to jump around. Your model still has to accept worse fits every so often. So the worse the fit, the less likely it is. And this way it allows you to jump around in your multidimensional parameter space to try to find the best fit possible. So with AI, there's just so much data that it has to jump around and it has to extend, and it can't always guarantee that it's finding the best fit. So that's why sometimes it'll hallucinate and come up with stuff like, what is it talking about? Because it's sort of jumping and trying to figure out the best way to answer you. But in order not just to get stuck in a mediocre response, it has to jump around and sometimes give you worse answers before it could train itself and get better. That's a sort of a simplified view, but it all started to click when I heard the AIs use Markov chain Monte Carlos. Revealing the hidden unity between modern science and ancient wisdom, let us consider how 3,557 years ago, Parshas Miketz identified this exact flaw. But if this glitch trapped a spiritual giant like Joseph, how do we identify the code blocking your personal redemption? So this idea we're going to get to, which is a common fault that many of us have, is we try to linearly extrapolate all the time. That's just part of, we're trying to search for patterns. We're trying to predict the future. It's a survival mechanism. So if we see certain things happening, let's say I have an expense. Let's say if some sort of big expense happens, and another one. Next thing you start freaking out. Oh my God, we need to cut back expenses. I need to raise my income. I need to invest. I need to, you start freaking out because you're just extrapolating. this is sort of the overfitting. You're getting stuck in your local minimum. And they're like, hey, it's okay. Life is really cyclical. And okay, so you had some days that appear to be bad, and it'll come back. You don't get these runaway effects. That's not how the world works. That's not how God created the world. That is not how nature is. It's going to be okay. So here we're seeing that in the Torah itself. We're going to start to explore where really the Torah itself showed these patterns happening before, and then AI is really an extension of that. And then ourselves, our own personalities, and we're going to see it from the lessons we can learn from our biblical forefathers like Joseph.
Pharaoh's magicians accessed the same dream data as Joseph, but they failed because they overfit the symbols to limited logic, proposing incorrect interpretations. But even Joseph made a similar error when...
So the interpretations is important because the idea that, I just like this, even if you're presented, multiple people are presented with the same data, how do you interpret that data? Same in life. You all have the same information, but it's how do you interpret it? How do you connect? How do you figure out how it's going to be applied or being reacted to? And that's very important. Just because you have the same data as someone else, knowing someone who knows how to put it all together, that is very, very valuable.
Joseph made a similar error when he requested of the chief butler to remember him and mention him to Pharaoh. Joseph overfit his strategy to a single vessel. The Lubavitcher Rebbe explains that Joseph's error wasn't asking for help. It was confusing the vessel with the source.
So that's an important point. There's an idea of something called hishtadlus, of effort. So we're commanded to make effort. We live in the physical world. We need to make our vessels. But we need to make sure not to confuse and think that our blessings come from the vessels, but rather the vessels allow the blessing, like water, for example, to flow. Right? Another example, you turn on the light switch. You didn't create the electricity. You didn't create the power plant. You didn't create the power lines. You open the gate. You turn the faucet. Do you know how much pressure is underneath the ground? We did a conversion of our garage a few years ago, and they had to lay new pipes. So they had to dig up the yard, and you got to see the pipes, and then they had to connect it to the main pipe. And there's a lot of pressure that's under those pipes. You have to be very careful. You know what you're doing, because you can create a big problem and lots of damage. So there's so much pressure there, and we're channeling it. And so the pipes are the channels that bring the water. And then the faucet opens that gate. So the hishtadlus is us putting the pipes in and opening them. But don't think that because you turned it, or like you go to an elevator, it's one of my favorite examples. You ever go in an elevator with a kid and they always want to press the buttons? There's a great example where it doesn't matter how old the kid is, as long as he or she can push the button. That it doesn't matter if you have the world's strongest man in the elevator or a tiny little kid. The elevator will still go the same rate. It's the same, all by pressing the same button. And it doesn't matter if you press 2 or 100. It's the same effort. Okay, you have to move your hand a little more, but it's essentially the same effort to hit 2 or to hit 100. And you get wildly different results. But all you did was press a button. So those are the vessels. So the mistake that Rebbe was saying is that he mistook the vessel for the source of the blessing. And in his case, the salvation, to be rescued from jail.
In artificial intelligence terms, he mistook the noise, the butler, for the signal, the divine providence. When you hyper-focus on the how of your salvation, you constrict divine flow into a container too fragile to hold it. So what can reprogram a mind hardwired to obsess over details? Before we can...
So just saying there that if you're too focused on it, you can actually say, you're essentially saying to God, I don't need you. I'm building my own vessels, my own pipes. Okay, you stay over there. I'm going to be the one who's in control of all the aspects of my life. And when I succeed, it's due to the work of my hands. In fact, I'm looking behind my screen right now, where it's from Deuteronomy. It says, and you will say to yourself, my strength and the might of my hand, that is what's accumulated this wealth for me. But you must remember that it's Hashem, for it's He who gives you the strength to make wealth. in order to establish his covenant, which he swore to your forefathers as it is today. God is saying in the Bible, don't think it's due to you. And if you do, God will say, okay, you know what? Go ahead, see how successful you are. And it usually almost never works out.
Continue, remember to sign up for my free newsletter so you don't miss the exclusive preview of my upcoming Torah and Science book.
Check out the newsletter. I don't sell or give away your email addresses, but yet you get access to when the videos first drop and these great PDFs.
The link is in the pinned comment under.
For those that don't know Hebrew, the top says Torah Umada, Torah and Science. The rest of it is in English. Occasionally I throw a Hebrew word here or there with a transliteration and translation, of course. Go sign up, links below, encourage a friend, send, helps me out, helps you out.
The subscribe button.
And subscribe if you haven't done so already. And
Machine learning engineers use a technique called regularization to penalize models that get
it's a lot of syllables. I had to practice saying that one.
Too complex, forcing them to simplify their logic. The Midrash explains that God imposed the 2-year penalty on Joseph for the same purpose, to strengthen his reliance on God. Joseph always acknowledged God as the source of wisdom. As he said, do not interpretations belong to God? Yet, he suffered from cognitive dissonance, believing his salvation depended on the butler. When he
So we spoke about this. There's another sikh where the Rebbe said that Yosef was at such a high level that even though you could interpret his actions as doing what we're supposed to do, it was the mindset. And also he was on such a high level that he did not require vessels to bring blessings. But that's a different aspect for a different time. But you see how it connects here where this penalty that you set for the AI model, you see the penalty that's rooted in the penalty set to Yosef to be in jail.
Finally declared to Pharaoh, it is not me, God will answer. Joseph demonstrated that he had resolved this disconnect, recognizing that God is the sole author of both revelation and redemption.
So it's not separate. Someone was left a comment recently in one of my videos. He views Judaism more just about the study rather than the practice. Judaism is about both study and practice, and it's very important that the two are intertwined. We're not just a religion. We're not just a lifestyle. It's a combination. It's a fusion of the physical and the finite in one. And it's very important, and the effect it has on spiritual realms from every time we do a mitzvah. So keep that in mind.
So, is there a physical interface
There were so many other options for new interfaces. This just brings back so many memories from the 90s. If anyone here is from the 90s and remembers this, leave a comment. I want to hear from you. And if you remember Skype before Zoom, let me know as well. DSL, 14.4K, 56.7K, huh? Yeah. AOL, dial-up. I'm feeling older now. Can't believe it.
we can access today that executes the same regularization protocol in our own lives? The answer lies in the Chanukah message hidden in this week's Parsha. The Greeks glorified nature's complex logic, but the menorah reveals Or Yashar, a direct light, a frequency bypassing reality's noise. Lighting candles is spiritual regularization, penalizing your ego's need for control and simplifying focus onto the one source.
The idea here is that the Greeks gave so much credence towards the beauty and fundamental value of nature, not realizing that you can have a direct source above. It's kind of like a video game. There's so many intricate details inside of a video game, but if you know the cheat code, you could type in the code and then it elevates you and it brings you to another world. Or like Mario with the green pipes, and you can just jump around into there and you can bypass so much of what's already in the natural world. So this is the idea here, that the ego itself is the one that says, I'm going to figure everything out myself. This is the idea that you're penalizing the ego, saying I'm going to do everything myself and use my own wits, and say no, the Or Yashar, the direct light that we see from Chanukah, it's the festival of lights, that we realize that direct oneness goes straight to the source, and Hashem's really the one in control. One other analogy, and I see it with my kids, I saw it written last year, Little kids will go around, inside of a house, everything's high. So for a little kid, like my 3-year-old, to get to the light switch, he has to go on the step stool. To get to the top drawer, he has to go on the step stool. To do this, to do that, he has to go on top of a step stool or climb on a chair. Sometimes he'll do it, and I'm right next to him. I'll say, Mendel, I'm right here. Tati's right here. And he still wants to do it himself. And it's like us with Hashem. We're trying to climb up and to do this and to contrive a scheme and to figure this out and figure that out. Hashem's like, I'm right here. Just ask me. I'll help you. And by the way, the answers don't always come on the time frame that you think is best. Very, very important to reflect upon.
By releasing fixation on specific vessels, you allow the divine algorithm to prepare the world for Mashiach. When the black box of hidden divine thought opens.
How cool is that? It's such a shame how to put it at the end of the video, but it's so cool. And I had to do history.
To reveal how the master algorithm encoded all of history.
Wow. Someone asked me in Shul the other day, what will it look like when Mashiach comes? Will we still see the chair? And I said, my understanding is, just like right now, when you see a chair or a desk or a table or whatever, any object you look around, a car, your computer, your phone, you see the physical object. But if you learn Chassidus and Kabbalah, you have to sit and meditate on the fact that this is really godly light and godly energy that's constantly creating everything Yishma quiz for Vega, something from nothing every single moment. And you have to meditate on that. But when you open your eyes, you still see the object. So I told them it's my understanding that when Mashiach comes and the second phase of Mashiach comes, it will be flipped. We will see the spiritual light, kind of like the Matrix. And if we meditate, we'll remember that, oh yeah, there's a physical chair here as well. It's kind of trippy. It's hard for us to understand here with our physical brains and fleshy eyes. But to the amount we're able to try to visualize it, I thought this was pretty cool. Because especially I have a few videos from before. Go check out my playlist about how the divine letters help facilitate the life force into creation.
To watch how I shatter the illusion of the science versus religion debate, click here. And to learn other novel insights connecting science with the Parsha, click here for the full playlist. If you'd like to sponsor one of these classes, click on the link in the description. Thank you for partnering with me as we build this unshakable conviction together.